third speaker. And notice before I introduce this speaker, notice that all our speakers are not just speaking from the head knowledge. You notice that talk is easy. It's easy to share knowledge. Anybody can share knowledge. But what happens after the knowledge is shared? You know, these speakers have hands-on, personal experiences, commitment and dedication to whatever they share with you. They talk and they do. Alright? They are personally hands-on with all the experiences and their responsibility to what they say. So I'd like to invite our third speaker now, Dr. Faizal, Hazis. Sorry, I need to be very sure that I don't say anything wrong. Oh, I'm not very good with details, alright? So he's a senior lecturer for the Department of Politics and International Relations, the Faculty of Social Sciences in UNIMAS. He's a prolific author, like I said. His latest book is available there for you to have a look if you're interested. And he works among the peoples of Sarawak and Sabah through his many research actions. So this is another man of action. So we welcome you to the presentation of the program.
And are you inspired already? If you are inspired, then we are done for tonight. So anyway, thank you, Rose, and in particular. I think I had been given a very difficult questions to answer tonight. Why Sarawak is still a Barisan National Safe Deposit? Well, I try to address that question tonight and also look at how civil society, especially you and me, can help and bring about change as what had happened in Selangor. I have the questions in my slides, whether possible is change is possible in Sarawak. I have doubts, but after listening to Hannah, I might review what I will say. Anyway, let's recap on what had happened in 2008 and 2013 in Malaysia in general, and then we'll be focusing on Sarawak because this is very important. I would argue that what happened in Sarawak in 2011 and 2013 is not unique to Sarawak alone. There is actually a national trend that Sarawak is following. The only thing is Sarawak lebih teruk lah. If you are Pakatan supporters, if you are Barisan National supporters, then it's good. Anyway, if you look at the results in 2013 elections, for the first time, not the first time actually, I think the first time opposition had denied Barisan National majority votes was in 1969 elections. Perikatan at that time managed to secure about 45% votes. But the defeat was more devastating in 2008 because they lost 5 states. In 1969, they lost 2/3 majority, but they lost Penang only, and of course Kelantan. But 2008, that's why it was called political tsunami. And for the first time after 1969, opposition managed to secure majority votes. So today Najib Razak is leading a minority government. Yes, and this is not surprising to a first past the post system, as what had happened in the UK election recently. The conservative managed to poll only 37 votes, 37% votes, and yet this managed to secure simple majority with about 6 to 8 majority seats. So if you want to push for change, per se, instead of just asking for free fair elections, we can actually demand for a change in the electoral system altogether. Pushing for proportional representation. And this is what UK are pushing now, after witnessing how disadvantaged first past the process, especially to small political parties. Now, let's move on. Now, this is what I was supposed to discuss tonight about the urban-rural divide. Now, this is in Malaysia in general, 2013. If you look at the urban and also the rural seats, basically the opposition Pakatan Rakyat secure more than 81% of the seats, urban seats. In terms of the popular vote, Pakatan managed to secure 61% votes in the urban seats throughout the country. And this is where Barisan Nasional, backbone support of Barisan Nasional lies, in the rural areas. I think this is what Rose tried to make a point here tonight, that the battle is not in the urban areas, it's in the rural areas. But I would argue otherwise as well. I would go there later on. So if you look at the rural areas, Barisan Nasional secured 77% of the seats for rural areas. And a big chunk of that rural seats come from our beloved state, Sarawak, and also Sabah. Right? And in terms of votes, it's quite marginal actually, it's not that huge. Only 55% of the rural votes went to Barisan Nasional. And mind you, this is Malaysia in general. I will show you the data for Sarawak seats for 2013. And it will shock you basically. Now, let's move on. In terms of, so this is basically the pattern of the voting in 2013 elections. There was class dimension just now in terms of the rural-urban punya seats. In terms of the middle class tend to vote the opposition more compared to Barisan Nasional, so on and so forth. But if you look along the ethnic lines, there is a difference as well. This data have been tabulated by our friend from Merdeka Center. They look at the polling streams, the majority, predominant, more than 90% Malay polling streams, 90%, more than 90% Chinese, so on and so forth. So if you look at the data, there was a slight increase in terms of the votes among the Malay voters. This is general throughout Malaysia. 61%. Slight marginal increase, not much. But if you look among the Chinese and also Indian voters, there's a significant decline in terms of support in 2013. Look at Chinese voters, for example, from 44% in 2008 down to 24% in 2013. And look at the Indian voters as well. It was about 51% in 2008, went down to 45% in 2013. This is the East Malaysian factor in the 2013 elections. I would say the regional factor. If you look at the peninsula, look at peninsula first. Basically, Barisan Nasional lost the whole of peninsula. In terms of the seats, no, in terms of votes, sorry. In terms of the votes, again, Pakatan won majority votes in the peninsula. But in terms of the seats, Barisan Nasional secured just 6 seats more than Pakatan Rakyat. So it was very close. And I think the momentum of change, if let's say the Pakatan Rakyat can fix their own problem, and then move forward, settle the differences, so on and so forth, get rid of Hadiah Wang, so on and so forth. If you can do that, because he's basically a divisive factor in Pakatan Rakyat. If you can do that, the momentum of change can continue going to the next election. Now, this is where the battleground is. Sabah Sarawak. Look at how dominant Barisan Nasional is here. In terms of the seats, out of 56 seats, Barisan Nasional secured 47 seats. Only 6 went to Pakatan Rakyat. 3 in Sarawak. 9, sorry. 6 in Sarawak, 3 in Sabah. So this is 2013 election. Let's zoom into Sarawak state seats. What I did here was looking at the 2011 state election results, and we tabulated the 2013 election results, and we tally it into state seats. It was a parliamentary elections in 2013, but we tally the results, and we came out with state result as well. Now, Barisan Nasional in 2011 won 58 seats. 16 went to the opposition, 2011. In 2013, 2011 is here. 55, they won 55 in 2011, and they increased the seat tally to 58 in 2013. So what happened? Barisan Pakatan Rakyat lost 2 seats. Independent lost 1 seat. So what happened? In 2013, the chairman of PKR lost his seat in Baklawan. So that's quite significant. And Pakatan Rakyat won Dudung and also Meradong. And this is very interesting. They managed to capture Telang Usak because of the Baramdan. I think this is another success story of another NGO in Sarawak, which had been very vocal in the last 2-3 elections. Safe Rivers. I think basically PKR didn't do much in Baram. Safe Rivers did a lot. And PKR basically went in and ride the wave of change that Safe Rivers had initiated in Baram area. So that's another success factor where civil society, not depending too much on political parties, can bring about change. Now, let's look at the votes among the different ethnic groups in Sarawak from 2011 to 2013. 2011 blue. This is very interesting. If you look at the votes among the Malay voters, and this is very alarming to me, at least. There's a very significant increase in terms of the Malay support. From 73% in 2011 up to 81% in 2013. And interestingly, before 2013, across the board, there is a trend where all support among the different ethnic groups in Sarawak towards Barisan Nasional had declined steadily over the years. Except for 2013, suddenly it went up. Across the board as well. Among the different ethnic groups as well. Not only the Malays, but so significant among the Malays. Another dimension of the voting pattern in 2013, this is the urban-rural divide just now. Now, if you look at the urban areas, again, this follows the trend in the national trend just now in 2013. Again, in the urban areas, Pakatan Rakyat basically secured more than 64%. In terms of votes, also they won majority votes, but this is where the problem lies, at least to Pakatan Rakyat, in Sarawak. This is in Sarawak, in 2013 elections. Only 3 seats, rural seats, went to the opposition. Telang Usan, Krian, and also Meradong. The rest, 94% went to Barisan Nasional. This is basically the backbone of Barisan Nasional support in Sarawak and also in the country as a whole. I think the same trend can be seen also in Sabah as well. Slowly, in the case of Johor, the opposition have been able to penetrate Johor as far as 2013 elections is concerned, but not yet Sabah and also Sarawak. So what's happening in Sarawak, and is change is possible in Sarawak? I try to be optimistic, but let's see the figures. So I would basically sum up the reasons for Barisan Nasional commanding hold onto Sarawak into these 4 factors. One is basically the inability of the opposition, Pakatan Rakyat, to challenge the power of incumbents. And mind you, Sarawak is maybe 3 times bigger than the state of Selangor. So Ana can be basically spending 13,000 to run the whole of the elections. If you have a state constituency as big as the state of Pahang, 13,000 may be enough to makan only. So I think this is the reality of running elections in Sarawak. So Pakatan failed basically to challenge the power of incumbency. Now, if we take out Welsh wrote a piece on 2013 elections, she basically estimated that Barisan Nasional spent a total of close to 58 billion ringgit Malaysia going to 2013 election. And Sarawak alone, I think in the last 5 years, going to 2013 election, federal and also state governments spent close to 700 to 800 million ringgit Malaysian, just to keep that safe deposit intact. And of course the use of state machineries and also mainstream media. I think this, we should not be underestimating this. Kemas, for example, is everywhere throughout more than 5,000 kampungs in Sarawak. And no political party or branches can match the penetration of state machineries in this respect. So you have a very big missionaries to challenge, and also you have a lot of a political party with a lot of resources to challenge as well. Not impossible, but very difficult. Now, in terms of, this is another point, Pakatan Rakyat opposition basically have a very weak grassroots presence, especially so in the rural areas, maybe with the exception of few seats. The rest, they don't have a very strong presence. And this is where, for example, people like you know, who have some expertise or time or resources to spend, this is where you can go around and we can actually share with you some of the marginal seats in 2013 election, and it had increased from 2011 to 2013, about 25 marginal seats. This is where the winning majority is between 5 to 10% votes, and that's not much. You can actually, with the right kind of strategies, you can easily swing these seats. So this is where people like you are needed. And Rose is basically doing this voter registration, voter education punya program, and this had been proven to be quite successful in some of the seats that the opposition contested in 2013. Opposition candidate who spent enough resources and time to go to this voter registration drive was successful in securing the seats from Barisan Nasional or even defending the seat. So this is a very realistic goal and also a very proven strategies in winning election. Voter registration and also voter education programs and so on. Lack of counter narrative. I think what is being lack of counter narrative on the part of the opposition, what had been expounded to the Muslim bumiputera voters especially, that you are basically a minority in this state, and because of you remain consolidated under one political party, which is PBB, despite being a minority, you can still rule the state. And this is not being campaigned publicly in the media, but it's being whispered throughout the Muslim bumiputera seats. And these narratives are not being countered strongly by the opposition. And the problem also in Sarawak, we don't have a very strong, prominent opposition Malay leaders as well to provide hope and also alternative to the Muslim bumiputera. Do you know one? Can you name one? I have to drink because of that. Alright, now let's move on. Of course, electoral fraud as well. I think Merdeka Center did a very good analysis. They look at 30 marginal seats throughout the state, and this in 30 marginal seats basically went to Barisan Nasional because of postal votes. If not because the postal votes, 30 seats basically already went to the opposition. Wow. So these are 30 seats. 30 add up to how many seats Pakatan won in 2013? 82. Close. I mean, not enough, but I mean, you can actually have a stronger presence in parliament as well. And of course, 89. And of course, vote buying, which is quite rampant. In the case of Sarawak, for example, opposition are also to be blamed as well. In some areas, you know, they offer more than Barisan Nasional candidate as well. Yeah. I mean, this is quite sad. I mean, you try to challenge that old politics, but you are perpetuating it for the sake of winning. So this is another issue that we need to address as well. Now, so pushing for change, moving forward, what can we do as citizens and also as civil society? First of all, is it even possible to have change? Now, looking at the election data, looking at the results, so on and so forth, if we want to have change of government, minimum number of seats is 36 to form simple majority in Sarawak, 36. But I think you need to have more than 36 to be secure. And Adnan buy you over and then you cross over. So you need to have more than 36, at least 40. But anyway, for the sake of debate and analysis, if let's say Pakatan can push for 10% swing in terms of votes from Barisan Nasional to Pakatan Rakyat, they would have an additional 16 seats. 16 you add up to the existing 13 that they won in 2013, that will add up to 29 seats. Still not enough. But at least you can deny two-third majority in Dun, and that would be such a big fit for the opposition. And that's how Sarawakian should welcome the new Chief Minister, Anand Satim, in his first elections in the state. Right? He thought he would get it easier, but Sarawak showed them how not happy they are, because there is this debate that among the Chinese there would be a swing back to Barisan Nasional because Pek Mao is no more there. One of the issues in the last two elections was Pek Mao. Yeah, you remember Badawi punya effect, the feel-good factor. You hate Mahathir very much, and then suddenly a new premier came in, and then Barisan Nasional secured the best election results ever, securing almost 90% seats in parliament. So do you want to go that path to welcome the new Chief Minister Anand Satim? Remember, as long as you don't change the whole structure of the system, these are superficial changes that he introduced. Right? Superficial changes. Let's say 15% swing. I will show you whether 10% or even 15% is possible or not. 15% swing. 22 additional seats. You add that up, that will be 35 seats. Close to simple majority, 36. Now, is 10% possible? Is 15% possible? Now, let's look at the history of elections in Sarawak. The only elections where the opposition managed to push and make sure that Barisan Nasional lost 13% votes was in the historic 1987 elections. This was during the Min Part. 13%. That was the best if you look at the election result. But significantly over the years, over two elections at least, the decline is quite significant, -8, -7. And if you want to push it even further, you can't have it without much hype. So what civil society prior to 1999 election, prior to 2008 election, prior to 2013 election, what they did was they created this hype, this movement of change that shaped the very foundation of Barisan Nasional, at least in the peninsula. If you really want to have a significant swing, you need to have that. So before I continue, and then we need to take a move. Let's give him a hand clap.
So 13% decline. So if you want to push, but remember 1987, the opposition had timber money. Remember? A lot of the opposition candidates were basically incumbents and also former ministers. And they had a lot of resources. And they had popular candidates on their side as well. And despite all that hype, they were able to deny two-third majority in Dun, but they were able to just push to 13% loss of votes to Barisan Nasional. So 15% is difficult. So where do we go from there? If you ask me to have a completely change in government in the next election, which is possibly next year, quite impossible. I try to be optimistic, but looking at the numbers is just quite impossible. Unless the opposition can prove me otherwise. At the moment, opposition are basically in shambles in Sarawak. DAP is willing to go on its own. PAS is pushing for hudud, thus being kicked out from Pakatan Rakyat Sarawak. PKI is basically not doing anything. So because of this, and of course Adnan Satim is making this very populist policies and also changes as well. So with that scenario, it's quite impossible to push for 15% vote swing unless you create a very strong movement on the ground that capture the imagination, especially among the rural voters. So what can you do as civil society? Now, in 1999, even before the opposition get together and consolidate as one coalition, civil society came together first. This was in 1998. Barisan Alternative came in later. Before 2008, Pakatan Rakyat was basically being established after 2008 elections. So even before 2008 elections, civil society came together first. So it was civil society which was instrumental with the help with a united opposition coalition that actually pushed for change. 1999 election, it became dormant because of Paklah factor in 2004. It reignited in 2008 and continued in 2013. It was the role of civil society in the peninsula, especially in the Klang Valley, Kinta Valley, and also in Penang. This is what is lacking in Sarawak and also Sabah. Basically, we don't have a vibrant civil society. A quick check with ROS, Registrar of Society Sarawak. In Sarawak, basically, we have about 3,000 NGOs. Less than 5% or less than 3% actually NGOs that basically pushing for issues of democracy and human rights. You can count them with your 10 fingers. And among these 10, very few which are very active. Some of them are here actually. Rose is one of them. Safe Rivers, one of them. Purple Lily is one of them. And a few of us in UNIMAS are working closely with this group of NGOs and try to realize this dream of creating this. Of course, this is unofficial. Hopefully my Vice Chancellor doesn't kill me. This is some of the ways we academics, we work with the federal government, we civil servant, but we have different agenda as well. So yeah, I mean, this is the things that we need to push in Sarawak. We need to have a vibrant civil society. And you can't work alone, Rose. What they are doing, they are making big steps now, but they can't be successful alone. They need to build up a network of NGOs, and this is what Bersih did. And this is what a few of the coalitions of NGO in Semenanjung prior to 1999 election, 2008 election, 2013 elections did. And this is what basically we need to do.